Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with New York City-based jazz bassist, composer, and band leader Clovis Nicolas. We caught up with this busy musician to talk about a host of projects like his new 2024 CD, Contrapunturist, getting through COVID, his life in jazz, and so much more. Born on the Ivory Coast and raised in France, he decided to be a professional musician after pursuing studies in philosophy at university. After graduating from a Conservatory of Music in 1996, he settled in Paris. He quickly became a first-call musician, performing with artists like the great Brad Mehldau, and went on to move to New York in 2002. He's got quite a journey in jazz. Dig this story.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm excellent. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out. It's an honor to talk to you.
My honor to talk to you too. Really happy for that.
Yeah. So let's get into the music. But before we do, I want to know, first and foremost, 4 years ago we were trying to figure out how we were going to get out of this pandemic, and it did quite a deal to all of the musicians in the world. How did you ultimately survive that time period, and how did it either influence the new album or the way that you do things now?
I think it influenced, how did I survive? I really survived by keeping focused on my goals and behave more like I was having a lot of free time to do everything I wanted to do for a while. So I didn't stop creating. I didn't stop doing things, and I just stopped playing, of course, because we couldn't play. But I did a lot of live stream. I would bring musicians over to my house. I was doing that at least once or twice a week, if I remember. And we would play some of my new originals, would play some songs, and I would broadcast it on Facebook or on Instagram. So it kept me active, it kept me busy. And I think that's how I survived. Eventually, the work started to come back, and I started to get my older connections and older jobs back. And one good thing it did, I think, is that the rates got higher after the pandemic. I saw a surge in musicians' fee. So that was a good thing, I think, from this period. And to tie it up to the recording, my last recording, among the things I took the time to do that I always wanted to do was to write a string quartet. So I had all this free time, I had no gigs, and I decided to not only write jazz songs and practice my bass and do my live streams, but also write a full string quartet. And it took me a year and a half, basically from the beginning of the pandemic to the end. And when I finished my string quartet, it was kind of the same time when people were starting to hire me for gigs again, and we would go back on the road. So I had a full string quartet ready, and I went in the studio and recorded it. I hired a string quartet to record it, and that's the start of my new album.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're hoping the listener gets from this new album. What's your hope for them?
So my hope is that I want them to hear basically the beauty of music and how it can take different shapes and how it can still be connected. In this album, there's half of the album is this string quartet performed by a string quartet, so more in the classical music, and the other half is the same material that I adapted for a jazz quartet, and a jazz quartet that plays really in the jazz idiom with a trumpet, which is Jeremy Pelt, like a real jazz trumpeter, and Bill Stewart on drums, which is really a jazz drummer, Sullivan Faulkner on piano, which is a jazz pianist. So you have these two versions of the same material that can be enjoyed either in a classical world with the string quartet, or in a jazz world with a jazz quartet. And I believe that each version of that same piece, which is a suite in a way, is good. Like it's a good sounding jazz version and a good sounding classical version, but it's interesting also to notice the similarities between those two aspects, because it's the same composer who did those two sides of the music.
So how did a kid from the Ivory Coast grow up to have such an illustrious jazz career and such a great run at things? How did all of this begin and take hold with you?
So I was born indeed in Ivory Coast because my father was working there as a scientist. And I remember a bit some of it, but I would say that what influenced me was my first musical environment was African music, because my parents were listening to African music, and we would go to parties over there. So that might be the connection to jazz eventually. And we moved back to France, and I started to be interested more and more interested in music. And I picked up the bass, even though my mom is a piano player, and I took a few piano classes when I was a kid, but I was more attracted to the bass and the electric bass. And eventually switched up to the upright bass because I was listening to jazz all day. I was listening to Charlie Parker, to Miles Davis, to Sonny Rollins. And clearly the electric bass didn't really fit. So I started to play upright bass. And back then I was living in the south of France, near the city of Marseilles. And I started to have gigs. And I was, I would say, a little bit eager to meet other musicians. So after playing with the musicians that were available to me in the south of France, I quickly wanted to go to Paris. So I went to Paris when I was like 22, 23 years old. I even played with Brad Mehldau in Paris. I got a call to play with young Brad Mehldau back then. And that started my, I would say, international career, because after that, everybody knew me in Paris. So I started to play with a lot of people and to record and to do all that. And eventually I just moved to New York because it was my dream. All the music I was listening to was coming from New York. I had made a few trips there. And I felt like it was so inspiring. The musicians were so high level. They were swinging. They were very inspiring, actually. And I thought I would learn more by coming to New York. So I came to New York at maybe around a little bit before I turned 30. And I got what I wanted. I played with a lot of musicians here. I went to the Juilliard School. I studied with Ron Carter, who was one of my heroes when I was in France. So it was so great to learn from the source rather than learning from the recordings or learning from someone who knew about Ron Carter. I just learned from the master himself. And one thing leading to another, I started to record my own album and play with different musicians in New York, and that's where I am now.
So talk to me a little bit about what you learned from people like Brad Mehldau and Ron Carter and various esteemed legendary players that you in turn over the years have taught younger players that you've been around.
I think I've learned the importance of the rhythm here in the United States, something that we don't really get in Europe. And I learned the importance of the how rather than what. I think before meeting all these great musicians and even before meeting Brad Mehldau, I was more interested in what are they playing? What is this line they're playing? What is this bass line they're playing, what is this chord substitution, what is this phrase. And I realized coming here that was only the surface of what was really going on. And I feel like being around someone like Ron, which I've been studying with for 4 years, it showed me that it's not that much like what he plays on his bass lines, but more about how he plays them. How is the rhythm or the placement, how he creates his sound. And you can have the same melody played by various musicians, but only very few will stand out. And because this is how they play it, because they're going to put more rhythm, more swing feel, more articulation, something that is not obvious when you don't come from the United States. So I would say I learned how to do things rather than what to play.
So when you talk to me about stages that you always dreamed of playing on, or, coming to New York, it's the Mecca. Was there a stage that you dreamed that you would play on? When you finally did, you were like, wow, I can't believe this is happening?
Yes. There was the first time I played at the Jazz Standard in New York, which doesn't exist anymore. It didn't survive the pandemic, which is a shame. But the first time I played at the Jazz Standard, I had this feeling like, wow, this is happening to me. And the same feeling when I played at DJ's Club, and I played also at the Blue Note, and I played at Birdland. Every time I was, it felt like it was a hard trip to come here, to leave my roots, my family, and my friends in France. But at these moments, it felt that it was worth it. And one of the biggest wow that I had is when I played at Alice Tully Hall with Herbie Hancock, because when I was at Juilliard, they organized a concert with Herbie, and they asked me to be the bass player for it. So when I was playing this concert with Herbie in front of this big room in this theater, I was like, I listened to Herbie so much in my childhood and in my younger years that I felt like it was this wow moment. I couldn't believe it. And I must say my next wow moment would be to play at the Village Vanguard. I've never played at the Village Vanguard yet, but I hope this will happen one day.
So at the end of the day, you've been at this for a long time. What's been the key to your longevity, or more importantly, what do you like the best about being a professional musician?
I would say the best about being a professional musician is I think most musicians would agree with that, is to do something that you love and that you truly love. You really have to truly love this to be able to keep doing it. Because if you don't truly love, if you want the fame rather than the music, you might be frustrated. You might be like, oh, I don't have the fame that I deserve and I want the fame. But if you're interested more in music, you will always be happy because you will always find music. The music is everywhere and music is accessible for a musician, and it's a great feeling to make a living doing something that you love. And that to answer the second part of your question, and to answer the first part, which is the key for my longevity, I would say first and foremost is my passion for it, because when you have such a strong goal, your energy lines up towards it, so you don't get that much distracted. I'm always practicing and writing music. Like half an hour before this phone call, I was composing some music, and probably after this phone call, I will practice my bass. So I never give that up. And I must say that also maybe I have a little bit more of a rational mind. In my first year of college was in mathematics, believe it or not, but I majored in mathematics for the first year before I realized that I wanted to do music. But I think this scientific mind helped me organize myself, and I think it's one of the key to my longevity. Like I organize my weeks, I organize my days, I organize my months. I know I have a goal to fulfill in 6 months. I know how to plan ahead of time. I know, and I think this is something that is very important, and I would say for every young musician that starting this business, don't waste your time and try to organize it. And that's something that I've always had, and I think that's one key to my longevity.
Why do you love jazz?
Why do I love jazz? It's almost it's hard to answer this question. It's a little bit like why do you love your wife? It's something that you fall in love with, and or a person you fall in love with, and you cannot really put everything into words. It's kind of a magical encounter, and for me it was, I think, the sound of the music. The first time I heard it, I love the history behind it. I love there's a tradition, there's some heroes, there's some history, like a deep history. I love that. I love the feeling of freedom that it gives. I love all the doors that still need to be opened. I feel like it's never ending music. It's not like when you go to most Carnegie Hall concerts when they keep playing Brahms and Beethoven and Stravinsky and Mozart, and jazz is very much alive, and it keeps moving, changing shapes, changing identities depending on the eras. I love that, and I really love playing bass, being with a bass in my hands on stage and swinging with a drummer and a rhythm section, and hearing my sound back and feeling the interaction with all the musicians. That's something that I love.
At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do you think I am? Who do I think I am as a musician or as a person?
I think they're intertwined. I think it's both kind of the same. You could separate it, but I think they both kind of, the Venn diagram goes together.
So who do you think I am? I think I am a bass player, actually. I really love playing bass, and something that I like about this role is to have such an important role, but still being a little bit behind the front line. And I think it's a little bit my personality. I like to be engaged in things, engaged in relationships with people. I like to help people. I like to teach my bass students. So I like to share my knowledge and give, and hopefully for the better. And I like to do it a little bit from behind, which is what I love about being a bass player. I don't have that much of this personality out front. I might be a little bit more shy than other people, so the bass fits my personality very well, because I'm still at the core of things, at the foundation of things, and I can help the band, the group, my environment, without being in the front. And that's I think that's kind of who I am. I might be the quintessential bass player in a way.
The brand new album, if anyone wants to pick this up in the proper sense or catch you live, any of your previous work, where's the best place for people to go? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of the question. People pick up the new album or catch you live?
I think the new album is a very good image of who I am, and I think that's my favorite of all albums. I really love this one, and I would go from there, and I would check out this album definitely. And the previous one, it's a very, very different one, but I love this one too. It's called Auto Portrait, and that's a completely solo bass album, which is at the opposite of what I just said, because I said I like to be in the back, but on my previous album I'm at the front because there's only me. There's only a solo bass album, but in a way there's still this kind of sense of intimacy, of quietness, of maybe reflecting mood of bass playing by itself. So in a way it still matches. And about live, I'm playing live regularly in New York. You just have to check on my website where I'm playing. I'm going to be playing in Washington, D.C., the Jazz Festival in Washington, D.C., at the very beginning of September, on September 1st. So if you happen to be in Washington, please stop by. I'm going to play with my band from the last album, The Contrapunturist.
This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your time, and keep making the beautiful jazz.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in Paris, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Clovis for his time, energy, and story. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.